Hey, good morning, folks. Pastor Steven back again with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic is titled The Thought Police. And so I've been on this track of integrity and anxiety and mindfulness. And so I'm just going to keep rolling with it today, all right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about a concept that is pretty widely known. Okay, maybe you know it, maybe not, I don't know. But it's this idea that behavior follows belief. Okay, behavior follows belief. If you've ever heard the statement, I think, therefore I am, right? It's this idea that your thoughts have a key impact on who you are as a person, right? And so if you want to change who you are, okay, you want to make sure that you first start by changing the way you think about who you are, or you want to change the way you think or how you think about yourself, okay? There was a song from the 90s by this band called Sister Hazel, and they had this awesome tag in the song: if you want to be somebody else, okay, if you're tired of fighting battles with yourself, if you want to be somebody else, change your mind, okay? And it's this idea that behavior follows belief. So who you believe you are, okay, is who you are going to portray to others, okay? And so if I'm lacking integrity, and I've defined integrity as being aligned or having alignment between my thoughts, my words, and my actions, okay? That's my definition for integrity, okay? And so if I'm lacking integrity in my life, I need to start by examining my thoughts and the way that I think, because I can try to change my words and I can try to change my actions, but if I don't start by changing my thoughts, I'm going to be fighting a losing battle. And I'm going to constantly have this dissonance or this disconnection between my words, my thoughts, and my actions if I don't first get my thoughts aligned. Think about it like this, right? Things in your life won't line up if your thoughts don't first line up, right? And I talked a little bit about that in a previous episode where I was talking about the divided mind and the mind field and sowing different or opposing thought patterns in our mind, right? Think about it like sighting in a rifle, right? I can buy a rifle from Shields, and I can buy a scope and slap that fancy scope on that rifle, and I can look through that scope and start pulling the trigger and be missing targets. Why? Well, because you can't just slap a scope on a rifle and suddenly that rifle is going to shoot in the direction that you want it to shoot in, right? You've got to sight that scope and that rifle in together. You got to get them in alignment. Then you're going to start hitting targets. And that's the idea here. If I'm not hitting targets in my life, okay, if I'm not making the marks that I want to make in my life, chances are I'm not sighted in. My thoughts aren't aligned. And so I got to get my thoughts aligned in order to be productive and effective, or as productive and effective as I've been created to be, okay? Or as I want to be, all right? And so I'm going to show it to you in Scripture today. This is Paul writing in his second letter to the Corinthian church, and so it's 2 Corinthians chapter 10, and I'm going to read verses 4 through 5, okay? And Paul's writing this. He says, the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We'll talk more about that in a later episode. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive, okay? Think about that verse right there. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. What's Paul saying here? Paul is saying that there's a lot of power in your thought life. And if you want to be effective and if you want to be productive, you got to get in this habit of policing your thoughts, making sure that your thoughts are lining up. If you're not making the marks that you want to be making in life, you got to start by focusing on your thought patterns, okay? And think about how one thought has got me going in one direction, but this other thought is pulling me back in the other direction, kind of like I talked a little bit in a previous video about a skid loader. One lever forward, one lever back, spinning in circles ensues, okay? And so Paul is trying to get us to have alignment in our thoughts. If we're not being productive, if we're not being what we were called or created to be, we gotta start by examining our thought patterns and getting those things in life. And so how do I do that, Stephen, right? Okay? Well, you gotta think about your thinking. Okay, metacognition. I don't know if you have ever studied psychology, but there's this science called metacognition. It's just thinking about your thinking, okay? And being aware of what you're thinking. Sometimes we just let our mind go on cruise control, and we just let our imaginations and our thoughts run wild. And as we're doing that, our anxiety at times will just start to elevate. We got to think about what we're thinking about, okay? And we got to start uprooting bad beliefs, okay? We got to start pulling those bad beliefs out of our mind. How do you do that? It's a simple phrase. You ready for it? You just say, that's not true. That's not true. Anytime where I'm thinking a negative thought about myself, okay, oh man, I'm such a bad husband. Hold on, Stephen. That's not true. Ah, man, sometimes I just suck at teaching. Hold on, Stephen. That's not true. And I gotta start uprooting those negative thoughts. Why? Well, because the only power that a lie has comes from whether or not you believe it. Okay? That's the only power that a lie has. Okay, is whether or not you believe it. And so the way that I stop empowering lies that I'm believing about myself is to stop believing them. And so I've got to start pulling out their power source, start pulling out those plugs and just saying, wait a second, that's not true. Wait a second, that's not true. That's not true. And as I stop empowering lies in my life, I'm going to start defeating the enemy that's within my mind, and I'm going to start living the life that I've been called and created to live. Hey, you guys, have an awesome, awesome day. Be blessed.